My name's Alison Overholt, and I'm the general manager at Oprah Daily. I am so excited to welcome you to the conversation today. It's called In Service to Yourself, In Service to Others, part of the engaging and inspiring program for this year's Dress for Success, Your Hour, Her Power campaign. Well, let's dive in. I'm so excited to hear from all of you. You all have awe-inspiring stories filled with determination, strength. Angie, let's start with you. And you've said that your parents instilled lessons of confidence, competitiveness, this idea that failure can actually really be an opportunity. I love that. Can you talk a little bit more about those lessons and how they helped you ultimately become the CEO of Visible?
So I did grow up in a really, really small farming town in Nebraska, actually less than 1,000 people, but with a really strong sense of community and this collective accountability for each other. I didn't grow up around business leadership, executives. My town was very blue collar, a lot of farmers. My dad was a farmer. My mom was a teacher. But all the lessons about hard work, accountability, and the need for support above and around you, that translates to the business world. And so I do have to say that competitive sports also were probably a large driver of my leadership development growing up. What it takes to be the top of your game, is going above and beyond what others are willing to do. And you learn that in sports. But as I've grown in leadership and certainly in my role as CEO of Visible, I look at ensuring that I'm providing that support system, encouraging my teams to take on more because I'll be there to support them if it doesn't work out, but also providing the vision of what's possible and instilling that sense of expectation and accountability, where the result is generally that they work harder and smarter to be successful.
Angie, I love that. And I spent a large portion of my career at ESPN. So what you said about lessons learned from sports really speaks to my heart. I love hearing that. So Karen, your personal story is incredibly moving. I'd like to ask you to share next. You created immunology in response to being diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. How did your own life-threatening diagnosis lead you to start your own business?
Well, first of all, thank you. And I just want to share with you that when I was diagnosed, it was a moment that I just was devastated. It set me back. I didn't know if I was going to live or die. And I want to just say that when I started to treat my skin, there are many things about that people would say when I would go for cancer treatments, my chemo, why is your skin not like my skin? Why can't my skin look like your skin? And I realized I did things different than other cancer patients. And so immunology was born. And that means the study of the skin's immunity. So I chose ingredients that come from Africa, from the rainforest, from India, and from France. And one of the things that was very, very important, I work with a botanist who is so brilliant in working with plants. But those ingredients were about bringing minerals to the body and vitamins to the body and working with what we call French green clay water. And that water is filled with those minerals. So women, we have so many hormones that are being triggered by these chemicals. We have so many things that are happening in our life that we don't even know that these chemicals that we put on our skin, there's over 250 ingredients that women put on their skin that are toxic. So that was my mission, is to how do I help women through that journey to stay well?
I love that, taking your personal experience and your passions and your values and using that to fuel this new chapter of professional success. That's amazing.
Yes.
So Dawn, I wanted to ask you, I love that you went from waiting tables to owning the largest number of Denny's franchises in the country. That's amazing. Early on, I have to ask, where did you draw your confidence from? How did you know you could make that leap?
I always say there's a gift in growing up poor. And that's how I grew up, with very little. And so what became important to me was to have a different kind of life. I wanted better for myself. And I remember being maybe 10 or 11 years old, and I was sitting on my mom's lap, and I said, Mom, one day I'm going to own my own company and I'm going to make a lot of money. And she looked at me and she said, of course you are. So that moment empowered me my whole life to think, of course I am. And I never knew what it was going to be, but I always had my eyes open for where I would see an opportunity. And I remember my mother, when she was trying to elevate her own life, and trying to buy a car or a wardrobe. And so it really makes me think passionately about dress for success. But when you don't have money, you spend your whole life thinking about how to make it and how to preserve it. And you make a lot of hard decisions along the way. And as you said, I had 111 restaurants that I've owned, and I only own 80 today. So, business and life, it comes with losses, but with all of those things, there's learnings. And sometimes it puts you actually in a better position than one might think. You think, okay, well, I've lost, 30 or 40 restaurants, but it gave me more time to focus on the restaurants that were better performers. I have been in business so many years that freeways get built, exits get lost, the town moves away. There's so many things that can come into play when you're in business. And so I think you spend your whole life strategizing and making the right financial decisions for your life.
That's great advice. So, Anita, I have to ask you, I understand you experienced some personal health issues during the pandemic that fundamentally changed your perspective on life. Now, your work as an educator is the true definition of being in service to others, but I'd imagine that as you experienced these health challenges, you had to really focus on being in service to yourself first. Are you able to share a bit about your health journey with us and how it is that you took care of yourself?
Yes, absolutely. It's really an American dream for me because I moved here from India. But this pandemic was definitely a very challenging time. On March 16th, the day New York went into lockdown, the schools shut down, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But this is where I have to say I had done a leadership program with Dress for Success. And I said, let me calm down and let me think about how I'm going to deal with this. Let me see all the things that I've learned at the leadership program. And, we were taught self-management, strategize, be responsible, calm down, take a deep breath. So I was definitely taking a lot of breaths. And, I said things will work out. And I said, I have to change the paradigm here. My mastectomy was June 24th, 2020. And here I am with a new pair of breasts, feeling quite uplifted. So there is, light at the end of the tunnel. And I think one has to keep positive attitude. I work with special needs children. And obviously, it was a very challenging time for the students because now they have to be remote. And the inequities in the education system definitely showed up during the pandemic. Because as you know, laptops were not freely available, the internet, the Wi Fi, space for students to sit and do remote learning was definitely a challenge. And as you can see, now we're all digitally getting more and more savvy, something we never did before the pandemic. So I think I feel positive.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing. I mean, what a journey. So many people have been through so many things in the last couple of years, but to experience all of that amidst all that we've been going through, we appreciate you sharing. I'd like in this next segment to ask each of you, how has what we've all experienced these past 2 years made you want to build community and work in service to others even more? Angie, let's start with you.
When I think about this pandemic and how broadband and connectivity showed its importance, and we really as a corporation rose to the occasion to be there for our local communities, specifically Invisible. We're not only an amazing and reliable wireless network connection, we're also an amazing network of humans, both our customers, our members, and our employees. And we really try to collaborate collectively to make Visible the wireless company that everybody else wants to be. And the concept of community is even built into our vision, that we want to be the most loved brand of the digital generation. So millennials, Gen Zs, and all those generations to come. And to us, that encompasses really, current communities, future communities. So we really want to get it right and make it really a community-driven company and a community-designed value prop in how we serve and how we do things for our member base. And making wireless different than it's maybe been on that, like really radically simple and fundamentally accessible, and what we say is audaciously inclusive. We started our company even before our first customer. We actually had a social impact program in place. So all of us can be seen, heard, and empowered, whether, no matter what your race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, socioeconomic status. How do we make this a wireless services for everyone? And it's built on the backs of social impact.
I love that phrase, audaciously inclusive. I'm going to carry that one with me for sure. So, Karen, how has the idea of building a community through your work changed over the last couple of years?
Well, I started an ambassador program because I thought if women could come together, and I always call it the pebble in the pond, right? And I felt as though that by bringing a community together, they would be able to have more conversation with each other to learn more about what's best for them. And women love to talk about beauty and beauty products and all of that. And I thought, this is a way that I can really communicate. I can bring women together. We could have Zooms like this and not be alone, and yet be able to tell their friends and their friends tell their friends. And you can say it's just skincare, but it's more than skincare. It's in their healthcare. It's in how they feel mentally, physically, the conversation that we've had to try to help them through some depression that they've gone through, not a psychologist, but just to have them to be a listener, and be their friend. So that ambassador program continues to grow, continues to be part of my life and part of my brand's life.
That's amazing. Dawn, as a restaurant owner, I'd imagine the past 2 years have, had a large impact on your businesses. So how does community and serving others motivate you to continue doing what you do?
One of the greatest things Denny's did a few years ago was they built a restaurant on wheels, and it's called the Mobile Relief Diner. And we go into communities that have been traumatized by earthquakes, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, and we feed people in that community. And we get our restaurant employees to volunteer and cook and hand out the food. And it's been just a very heartwarming, good feeling thing that brings together employees and corporate. And during COVID, we looked for ways to say, how can we help our first responders? We delivered food. We took care of the elderly. We really made sure that we took care of the people that we felt were being neglected. And I think COVID was such a traumatizing experience for the full service restaurant industry. We created task force so that we could put all the best minds together to create ideas for how to feed people, how to keep our employees, how to help franchisees still survive. We didn't know if we were going to lose everything we had. So it was a trying time, but I think we came through it and we learned a lot. And I also think we learned about the importance of taking care of one another.
Absolutely. So, Anita, you touched on this a little while ago, your work in the schools with children, how different that's become during this time. How has your idea of community become even more important to you during this pandemic?
No, definitely I think the biggest lesson we've learned from COVID is the importance of human relationships. And I think the positive out of it is that people have become kinder, gentler, and there's a certain value to relationships, human relationships that people enjoyed and lost. And I believe that has come back. I see it in my school. The children also are a lot more toned down. They don't take things for granted. They appreciate being back in school with their friends because that was a huge loss. And I think, the COVID put us in a kind of desert, in a kind of isolated place. We now have to band together and move forward one step at a time. And I'm looking forward to that.
At Oprah Daily, we often discuss how you have to invest in yourself so that you have the fuel to serve other people. So I'm curious how you all practice self-care. and nurture yourselves so that you have the energy, you're not running on empty, you're able to do all of these things to have these ripple effects around the country, around the world with your friends, family, employees. Karen, let's start with you, being our beauty guru.
So self-care means so much to me, and it comes in different forms and mindset. And the first part is being mindful. And self-care is also not just how you look, but how you feel inside. And so, for me, I just want to say, I actually wake up in the morning, I take my vitamins, I make sure I have my juices that I'm going to juice, or whatever that combination is that I'm drinking for my health and keeping my immune system up. But I want to say that self-care, when I do this, I know that I'm doing it for myself, but I also know that I'm doing it for those around me. And sometimes we don't realize that self-care isn't just about ourselves. It's also about those that are around us. Because if we're feeling good, we can inspire others. If we're feeling good, we can bring that positivity to others.
I love that. Anita, how are you taking care of yourself these days?
I had done a little bit of yoga, so I take the time to just sit in the morning and a little bit in the evening. I think breathing daily has been a huge routine. And I have a gym in my apartment building, which I've joined, and not heavy weights, but definitely the treadmill and the cycle. And then I've been writing a little bit of poetry. My reading has definitely gone up a lot, which, earlier I would just sprawl in front of the TV. Now I'm taking the time to read books and, something meaningful, which is also like mindful and puts me in a better space.
And I had a friend tell me last fall, if you can get up even 5 minutes earlier and set a reminder on your phone, and my reminder has a series of questions in it. So I wake up in the morning and I make my coffee and I sit by myself for just 5 minutes and I go through those questions, and all of them are, they're very simple. It's, what are you bringing to your day today? And then where is your breath? And then, what are you thinking of this morning? Notice your breath. And after every single question in my little list, it prompts me to come back to breath and take that moment. And it's been interesting what an incredible difference it's made in terms of how you begin the day, bringing yourself kind of back to yourself. Dawn, are you good about taking the time to replenish and re-energize yourself? How are you doing it?
Well, let me say, I'm in the 365-day, 24 hours a day industry, which is very hard. So it's hard for me to unplug. My phone can ring in the middle of the night and a car is driven through a building. There's a fire. Something is always happening. So I make a point once a year. My best friend and we take a 10-day spa trip. And I find that it really sets the tone for the rest of the year because everything needs maintenance. And what I find is that it makes me a better boss. It makes me a better mother. I come home refreshed. I come home with a new thought pattern instead of thinking about all the things going on in the day. Did the truck deliver the food? Did everybody show up? Well, all the things that happen in a restaurant in the course of the day. I'm now thinking forward. I'm thinking about things that I can do better for my employees, for my children. And it's been a real gift. And I didn't realize, you don't know what you don't know.
And Angie, what are you doing to take care of yourself?
I feel like I might be the only one that would say this, but I do love a really good glass of wine at the end of the day. And so that always helps for me. And with the commute being not there for a lot of the last couple of years, I've actually replaced it with probably getting a little bit more shut eye. And I needed it, like more than I would care to admit. And I think growing up, maybe like I did, maybe like many of you did, you feel like you had to work harder and longer and all that. And I think I was almost on the treadmill, not the healthy one, the work one, constantly, and thinking that I had to work these extensive hours. And someone said this to me, and it was exactly how I felt, that I'm not working from home, I'm living at work. And it was, I had to be then conscious of separating when I was home and working, when the cutoff point was, and how I separated my life in my house for work. And then like having a designated, okay, I'm done. Like I would have leaving the office, and maybe I was going to the gym or going out to dinner before. There was a clear separation. And, a number of years ago, unfortunately, one of my best friends passed away from a really rare brain cancer. And in her will, she willed me a lovely handbag, by the way, but and told me that was an investment, which I agree. But then second was some jewelry from some places around the world on the promise that I would begin to take all of my vacation every year. And so I think that was a gift that she gave me, was a little bit of guilt to take my vacation every year, but I try to really unplug when I do.
So, as leaders, there are these pivotal points in all of our careers where we have to make high stakes decisions, which I know can be hard. Dawn, I'm curious how you approach making tough decisions.
Well, there's a lot of different strategies that I have, and it depends on what the issue is. So I have a great team of people, and I think it's always good to get everybody's perspective. We sit down as a group, we look at the pros, we look at the cons, and we really try and come up with solutions as a team. We try and find something that everybody gets behind, because when there is a problem and everybody believes in the process, it works itself out much quicker. So I look to different ways. I'm never afraid to ask for help either. A lot of you probably don't know my backstory, but I grew up with a lot of shame. And with shame comes silence. And I learned as an adult to get rid of that shame and to be able to ask for the things I need and the help that I need.
It's powerful. Angie, how about you? How do you make tough choices?
As a general rule, I'm a very data-driven person. So I like to make decisions quickly, but usually just grounded in insights. I would say has been my largest driver of, like, say, business leadership decisions. When there's the human aspect of it, I like to make sure that I'm hearing the team and hearing the people around and listening. So an active listening and making sure that I understand the entire context. So I guess that's a different kind of data, but it's a human data that I think really is important as leaders to make sure that, we have to make tough decisions. We have to make trade-offs. And certainly in business, that's going to be an everyday thing to do. But they're ultimately also being transparent about the why in the decisions I made, I think has made me be more successful even in making tough decisions for the team.
Thank you. Anita, I'm wondering if you could share with us an experience that you've had making a tough decision and how you approached it.
I think my motto basically is teamwork, makes the dream work. And I find every time I've thought that, oh, it's all about me and I can do this on my own and I know how to do it, it's not always been that successful. If I've reached out, for the help and got to the team that's working, then there's always been a solution and we managed to achieve the goal. And this I'm talking about in a classroom setting. And I think the universe does put you in the right spot at the right time. You just need to ask for the help. You need to stay positive, and you need to just trust. So I think those would be my advice for people, struggling. Don't give up.
Powerful. And what about you, Karen? Do you have any tips for people who are making hard career decisions?
Yes, I recommend that they make a circle and they put the things in life that they want to achieve, and they look at that circle periodically, and they have a guideline. It's maybe their own little journal of how they're going to achieve that success. But if you put it out there to the universe and you say that that's what you want to achieve, you will achieve that. If you want to, if you set those goals, you will achieve that. At the same time, I always feel like I can always be better. I can always do better. And with my team, I'm always taking the step of I need to listen. Listening is one of the best things we can do. It teaches you, it helps you, it even can inspire you, because you'll hear things, if you really listen, that you didn't know or know about someone. And so you can take that and help them. So listening is probably one of the things I always like as a takeaway, because sometimes we're too willing to talk and not listen.
Powerful. I love your circle tool. That's terrific. We just hosted a live stream workshop on Oprah Daily all around vision boarding. And when we talked about it as this sort of powerful tool for making tangible the things that matter most to you and that you want to focus on every day, it strikes me that your circle exercise is another form of doing that. And I love the idea of bringing that into the mix of those kinds of very concrete, visioning, goal setting, commitment driving, tools that we can use to really make our lives be the lives we want.
I believe it's our responsibility as women who've been through things and who are successful to give it back, to share it, to not be selfish, to not withhold, but to be authentic and just lay it out all out on the line. And I had to speak at my kids' school, and it's always a touchy subject when you want to talk about sexual abuse. And my partner said to me, "No, I don't think you want to talk about that." And I said, "I think I do, because if I can change one little child who's lonely and thinks it's only happening to them, I have to say it." When I look back, it can be a vision board. It could be mental energy you put towards something. It could be your intentions. But when you put them out there, they really do happen, because I am a living example of it. Every single thing came to light. And it was before I even knew what a vision board was. And by the way, I have a vision board. My children have a vision board. And I do believe all of that is real, because it puts what you want in your circle, of what you want and what you need. And that's why it's a circle, right?
It has been tremendously inspiring to be in conversation with all of you today. I'm so glad Dress for Success brought us together. Angie, I want to wrap up. Let's start with you. What made you want to join this campaign?
Dress for Success's mission, to help empower women to achieve economic independence. It's one that's close to my heart, especially top of mind during Women's History Month. And so I feel really, really honored and privileged to be the CEO of Visible. But I'm also aware of how much work I put into to this, and how many others have actually gotten me to this point. This was not Angie's journey. This was the journey of a lot of mentors and supporters and bosses and coaches along the way. And there's not that many women in a C-suite, and even fewer, I'd say, at tech companies. And Verizon really stands apart on that front. So I will give Verizon full credit for how we rise and there with our head of our consumer group, our head of our business group, head of Visible, all women. And growing up in Nebraska, as I mentioned before, in a small town, I didn't see a lot of the titans of business around me, let alone women in corporate roles or large business roles. So I think representation really matters. It was critical for me to see the potential that, I could do that. And I think that's really my goal now, is to help pay that forward, to help other women unlock their potential, to see what possibilities exist, and to make sure that any barriers that are there that I can help knock down, I do that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Karen, how about you? What made you want to join the Dress for Success campaign?
For me, it's almost like full circle. It's seeing an organization that started out to help women, and here I can be part of that organization to help other women. So my company, is about women, and of course men do use my product, but the majority are women. And so this was just an important part. And so I just felt so honored to be able to be asked and to even be recognized. And I really couldn't say no. It felt like it was part of my universe that I put out there to give back. So I am just so honored, and I'm looking forward to being able to help other women that come through Dress for Success, and just encourage them to stay positive and stay on that track of success, and that we're all there rooting for them.
And Dawn, how about you? What made you want to team up with Dress for Success?
So there's a couple reasons I wanted to be involved with Dress for Success. First, I'm a woman who didn't have a lot, and I know what it means to have the help. But I wanted to also educate women, and men too even, that the restaurant industry is such a great industry to help elevate people. It is a non-discriminatory business that anybody without an education, without formal training, has an opportunity to grow in. And that even if you're thinking, I don't have this or I don't have that, the restaurant industry can take you far places. It is not just the job that's a host or a server or a manager or a line cook. You can work in PR, you can work in menu development, you can work in advertising. There's so many facets of it where you can be elevated with very little experience. One last thing, if I might. We might all be very successful women today, but we didn't get here alone. And I think when you have a partner like Dress for Success, it's a tool to help us get to where we need to go. And I just thank all of you, and I thank all the women before me who helped me get where I got. So thank you.
And Anita, you have such a beautiful personal experience with Dress for Success. And I understand that you have a beautiful expression of what Dress for Success means to you. Will you share that with all of us to close us out here tonight?
Sure, I will. I just wrote a short poem, and this is to everyone at Dress for Success. My words can never be enough to let you know the way you soothed my spirit to help me heal and glow. Your eyes moist with understanding, your voice kind and gentle. It lit up my world with a force so vivid and monumental. There was no preacher's sermon or a teacher's book of rules, just abundant love, encouragement, and support, all of life's greatest tools. You help me rise, recover, and shine once more, always giving me opportunities, training, and applause that opened many doors. Today, I live an exuberant life of purpose with a soaring self-esteem. Thank you for helping me find and live the American dream. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you all so much, Angie, Karen, Dawn, Anita. And I'm Alison Overholt from Oprah Daily. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and I know so many people will be inspired by each and every one of you today.